Hey, what's up YouTube? Thanks for tuning in on today's episode. Today is going to be a fun one. We have Justin Wright out of Arkansas. He's an accomplished musician, producer. He's just an overall great guy. You know, he knows his stuff. The name of this new series that we're going to be doing is called Studio Spotlight. So stay tuned for more of these kind of videos. It won't be every week, but yeah, we'll be doing them along with the vlogs and the tutorials and the gear reviews and all of that. But just like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you can get all the notifications.
What's up, y'all? Just wanted to do a quick video walkthrough of my home setup. I've had some questions on what I'm using, my setup, and my workflow process and how I do things. So I just wanted to do a video real quick, and hopefully that'll answer the questions. If you have more questions, just leave a comment, or you can message me directly, and I'll try to answer it to the best of my abilities. So let's go. So to start with, my computer is a MacBook Pro 13-inch mid 2010 running macOS Sierra, and it still works pretty good. I don't have too many issues out of it. So my hard drives, I have 2 SSD drives, but when I got this computer, it came with like a 320 gig hard drive. And it had the CD optical drive still in it, so I ended up moving the old hard drive over to where the CD drive was and putting that 240 gig SSD drive in, and then I realized that still wasn't good enough, so I ended up swapping out the old hard drive that was in the spot where the CD drive was, and I put in a terabyte SSD drive. And that terabyte drive is where I have all of my Logic stuff. All of my projects are there, all the loops, all the sound libraries that come with Logic, all my VST sample libraries, and all that stuff is on that external SSD drive. And then my main hard drive is where my OS is and all my apps are running it. And I have 16 gig memory, and everything seems to run really well. And like I say, I'm using Logic as my main DAW. And in my workflow process, I've just figured out the best way to work with things and making sure Logic can handle everything that I'm doing. So what I do when I'm making stems for a loop community, loop gospel, so I break everything out in separate projects. So I do my aux in a project, I do my bass. If I'm doing key bass, I do it in a project. When I get my guitar tracks back from my guy, he usually sends maybe 4 or 5 different tracks, so I mix those in a separate project. I do my keys in a separate project. I create my loop in a separate project. I track my drums in a separate project. I track my organ in a separate project, which I'll show you that later because I have a template for that. And then I bounce everything out, and then I bring those into my mix project, and that's where I mix everything at. And then once I'm done mixing, I bounce out my stems, and I put those in another project just to make sure all my levels are good before I upload to the Loop Community website. And that's just basically my workflow process. Just make sure, like I said, Logic can handle everything I'm doing, because if I have too many tracks, too many plugins, too many MIDI tracks, and different things going on, you get those system overload message and disk too slow, all that stuff. And it does kind of take up some space, but I do come back and clean it up once I feel like I'm finished with it. I'll clean up the space and everything, so it works for me in my process. And interface I use for tracking is a Focusrite 18i20. So it has 8 mic preamp inputs. And each one of those are dual inputs, so you can do 1/4 inch or XLR inputs on those. So I track everything in stereo. So my Nord Piano 3, I track that in stereo. My Roland Gaia, which I use mostly for keybase or some synth stuff, auxiliary stuff, I track that in stereo. My Motif, classic Motif 8, I track that in stereo as well. I mostly use this for synths, auxiliary stuff like that. If ever I don't feel like going through Logic and trying to find a certain sound, if I know exactly what I'm looking for, I can go straight to Motif and find it, and I can just track with it. And this here, the Akai MPC Renaissance, I never use this anymore. I basically got this like 4 years ago when Akai first came out with it. I got it mostly just for the software, because back then when it came out with it, you had to buy them together. So the controller does not work without the software. It does nothing without it. And when they initially came out with it, the software wouldn't run without you having a controller. But about 2 years in, they unlocked the software. So now, once you have it unlocked with the serial number and all that stuff, you can just run the software by itself. So this is what I use mostly on Sundays at church and everything, or out when I have to go somewhere and play or something. I use this for my loops. But now when I'm working on tracking stuff out, I usually just pull from here different samples that I already have. I already have them already here in my folder. Certain ones that I use a lot of the time, I can just pull these out and copy them over and pull them into Logic, where I create my loops for stems. Let's go back to Logic. I said I was going to show my template that I use for tracking organ. So I have a Nord C2D and I have a Leslie 3300. So I use the left right out of the organ, and I also have the Leslie mic. I just do that just to cover my tracks. If something goes wrong with the mics while I'm tracking, I still have that left right recording as well. So and it just gives a good mix of everything. So in my template, like I said, I have the left, right, bottom mic, and I have the left and right out coming from the Nord. Just to show you real quick. So top mics left and right, I'm using Shure SM57s. And then on the bottom, it's just this CAD D10. This is actually a kick mic, and it does pretty well to capture the low end coming from the Leslie. So usually what I do, I have the SM57s coming in into the front. You have tracks 1 and 2 in the front. Then I do the bottom mic and track in input 3, and then I do the left right coming from the Nord. I do that in 4 and 5. So that gives me my 5 inputs, and that's where I track organ at. And my studio monitors. These are Presonus. I think they are E3.5. So that's 3.5 inch speakers. They work pretty well. Give me a pretty good clear tone and good picture of the mix when I'm working. Sometimes I'll mix with these Tascam headphones. They're decent. These are like $20 headphones, but they give you a good sound, pretty good picture of the mix. I do plan on getting some bigger monitors, probably like 6 or 8 inch. Not sure on the brand yet, still researching that, but I'm gonna put those on stands to the left and right of the desk. So that's pretty much it for my desk area. This is where I do most of my tracking, and this is where I do my mixing. And next, I'm gonna take you to my drum setup. All right, so we're over here in my drum area. So start with the drums. This is a Pearl Session Studio Classic set. Toms are 8, 10, 12, and 16. These heads I'm using, these are Remo color tone Emperors in the smoke color. I really like these, the way they look. And I'm partial, I don't know why, I'm more partial to the color tone over the regular Emperors. I don't know, it's just something about the sound of them. Yeah, I really enjoy those. I actually just put these on. I had been using Remo white suede Emperor heads, and I really like those. I was just in a mood where I just wanted to change and go back to some color tone Emperors. So it's just how I'm feeling right now, and I'll probably end up going back to those white suedes at some point. On the kick, this is a Power Stroke Pro on the kick. And this is probably my favorite snare. This is a PDP limited edition Babinga wood snare. I think it's like 20 ply, so it's a really solid, heavy snare, and get really good tones out of it. Of course, I'm using the Power Stroke P77 Clear. And my other snare that I use quite a bit, it is a Pearl Session Studio Classic 14 by 5.5, I believe. It's that first snare you see over there. And I have I think it's a Remo coated Emperor on the top, and that's probably my snare I use the second most. My side snare, this is Pearl Hybrid Exotic 14 by 8. I'm using a black suede Emperor head on this, and I get really good tones out of this snare. My auxiliary snare that I use sometimes, this is just a PDP 10 inch, I think it's like 5 inches deep, with a black suede Emperor head on it. And cymbals, these are all Zildjians. Hi-hats are custom special dry. Crash is a K Custom Fast Crash, K Custom Special Dry, K Custom Special Dry Splash, K Custom Special Dry 16-inch Crash with a Audix Splash on top. This is a 12-inch Splash on the top on the stack. Forgot to mention both of these are 18 inches. Hi-hats are 14. This Splash is 10. Special Dry Ride, 21 inch. This is a K Custom Dark Crash. It's probably my favorite cymbal. And then this Special Dry Effects Crash. This is a 19 inch. Also this K Custom Dark Crash is 18, which I really wish I had gotten a 19, and I probably might do that someday. We'll see. And then this effect stack that this comes together, and you can either stack it this way or you can stack it like a hi-hat. And this is the 12-inch version. I think it comes in 10, 12, and 14, I think. And mics, On the toms, I'm using Audix D2s. I think these all three came in a pack all together, and they work pretty good. Get really good sound off the toms. On the floor tom, I'm using another CAD D10 kick mic, and it works pretty good on the floor tom. Planning on possibly getting Audix D6 for this. We'll see. On the kick, there's a Shure Beta 52. And then on the snares, on all the snares, I'm using Shure SM57 on top and bottom. I did have SM57s on the aux snare here, but I pulled those off so I can mic my organ. But I'll get some more SM57s sometime soon. Condenser mics, I have they're all CAD C9 condensers, and they're cheap condensers, but they work pretty good. So I got the hi-hat mic, I got the mic under the rod just to catch the bell, and then I have two overheads as well. They're all the CAD mics. And then my computer that I use, and my interfaces over here, I have a separate setup for tracking drums over here. So I have a 2010 Mac Mini, and it's also running Sierra, and it also has a SSD drive in it. Only 120 gig, but like I said, I only use this for tracking drums over here, so I don't really need that much space on it. Memory 16 gigs. Yeah, so I just I track my drums over here, and I also have a template set up for drums. So I have my drums all grouped together in this one track that I control everything. So I have the overhead, left, right, hi-hat, rod. I have all my snares, top and bottom. Then I got my kick, and then I have all the toms. So every time I get ready to track, I just open up the template and hit record. Ready to go. And interface. I have another Scarlett 18920, and I have that paired with a Scarlett OctoPre. So that gives me 16 mic preamps that I can use, and I'm using almost all of them. I think I'm using 15 tracks, inputs, since for all the mics I have. And this works off of, so you run an ADAT from the Scarlett, the 18920, and you run an ADAT out of here into the OctoPre, or out of here in, well, whichever way they're connected. So the Scarlett acts as like the brains of it, the clock source, and they stay in sync with each other. And these worked out pretty well for me. I'm pretty happy with the recording that I get out of these interfaces. So yeah, that's it. That's drum tracking space. So yeah, you have any questions? Like I said, just let me know, and I'll try to answer as best as I can. All right, I appreciate y'all. Oh yeah, one more thing. If you can, follow me on loopcommunity.com. Just search for me, Justin Wright. You can find my tracks that I have. They're available for purchase. I do have more coming very soon. I'm trying to crank out as many as I can. And also, look for me on gospelproducers.com, where I am offering musician for hire services. There, I'm available to track keys, aux keys, organ, drums. I can do drum programming, all of those things. at a very affordable rate and a decent turnaround time. I try to get things done no more than 2 to 3 days. And it's an open site, and you can request different things from me. We can work together, and we can come up with a budget and a timeline, whatever you need to get your project done. For me there, loopcommunity.com, gospelproducers.com on the Producers Marketplace. Follow me, social media, J-Wright the Truth, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. And I look forward to working with you. All right. Peace and blessings.